Welcome to the Choose to Change 90-Day Re-Entry Program. If you are new here or a visitor, we welcome you and we are glad you are here. Many of us walked into these rooms not knowing what to expect, but many of us saw real people with real hope who had real problems. This 90-day reentry program is a self-supporting group sponsored by the Choose to Change Foundation. There are no dues or fees to attend a class, but we do encourage donations from our members and visitors and anyone who believes in what we are doing. The only requirement for membership is a sincere desire to change. So if you're ready to change your life, then you're in the right place. Through this program, you will learn the tools and resources to finally change your life forever and a relationship-based support system to keep you going. For many of us, there is no easy way out of the mess we created in our lives, even if it wasn't your fault. But let's be honest, sometimes it was our fault. But the good news is that there is a way out if you would choose to believe in the impossible. Thank you, everyone, for attending this meeting. My name is Frank Salazar. Now, I've been a member of the Choose to Change 90-Day Reentry Program. Going on 10 years, I walked into these rooms not knowing what to do with my life, just that I needed a change. I lost my family, I lost my kids, and if it wasn't for Orlando challenging me and my life to get it in order, I wouldn't be where I am today. Tomorrow, my kids will be here for Thanksgiving. So that's awesome. That's a miracle. Now, without further ado, we're going to be hearing from Orlando Salinas, our mentor and CEO. So let's give him a round of applause.
Frank. Thank you, Frank. You look very American, like I said. Hey, appreciate you coming. Looks like we have a small group today. That's okay. Everybody's looking for the good life. Very few people find it. Did you know that? A lot of unhappy people in our world. Divorce is at an all-time high. Over 50% marriages. That's in the church. People are sad, depressed, lonely. How do you find a good life? Ever thought about that? I'm telling you, it's a lifestyle, and we can achieve it. Welcome to the Choose a Change Mentoring Program. My name's Orlando, and those of you watching, thank you for watching. It's been an interesting week, an exciting week for me. I'm doing more and more, getting engaged more in the community. I started going to a alternative school. These kids are from 12 to 16, 17. It's interesting. I'm going to a rehab, went to a rehab center this week where people are trying to get their lives right from alcohol and drugs. Went to the parole office, people coming out of prison. And which is why we call this a reentry program, because no matter where you come from your life of drugs and alcohol, from just a confused and lost person, from prison, doesn't matter where you come from, but when you get ready to change your life, you get to that crossroads, which a lot of people don't get to. For some reason or another, they just never get to that point where they say, you know what, I need to change. I need to go in a new direction. So if you're here and you got to that point, you need to thank God for that. Because not everybody gets there. Today, in this class, I talk about the process of change. Today, I want to talk about lifestyle, which is the sixth key to the process of change that I teach in this place here. Who remembers what we learned last week? Anybody? You don't remember, Chavaria? Well, I won't put you in a spot. We talked about habits. We talked about habits because habits are a major key in our lives, a major thing in our lives that if we don't change, there's a lot of bad habits that we need to change. And if we don't change them, we'll never change our lives. So, and the reason why habits are so important, I talked last week about that's super important for many, many different reasons. One, they run our lives, believe it or not. Habits run our lives. And unless you don't, if you don't understand that and you don't see that, then you'll never understand why you can't change your life. And the why they're so super important is because habits become a lifestyle. So I read a little article I want to read to you as we get into this. I really love the way because lifestyle is basically just what we do on a daily basis, on a consistent basis. The way people know you. If I were to ask one of your family members about you, what would they say? What would they say about you? You would say one thing because, we like to put this facade, right? We like to say, this is who I am to the world, to people. But in reality, who you are is who you are. And it shows. Listen to what this article says. Let me get it here. I know it's here somewhere. I really like what it says. He says, lifestyle is a reflection of who you are. So here's what he says. This is Jim Rohn, one of my favorite business life philosophers. And here's what he says. He says, our lifestyle communicates a clear message about who we are and how we think. He says, lifestyle is where we go, what we do, and how we feel when we get there. Lifestyle is how we dress, what we drive, and the type of entertainment we choose to enjoy. Lifestyle is a mixture of substance as well as style, refinement as well as intellect, and emotional control in times of challenge, as well as emotional release in times of joy and happiness. Successful people and or those who are serious about the pursuit of success or change, they tend to communicate the level of sophistication and intelligence they have managed to acquire. In other words, it depends on what you know and what you believe that's going to show who you are. How they conduct themselves leaves little doubt about their intensity for personal growth, personal change, and personal development. So people see it. People see our lifestyle. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because if you're going to change your life, if you're going to make your life better, if your life is going to go in a direction that by the time you end your life, which is something you really need to think about, how we're going to end, because a lot of people don't think about that, especially when we're young. How old are you, son? 26. 26. I'm trying to remember that far. I was not thinking about life change or success or overcoming in life, which is a quote I want to give you. Listen to this quote. Living the life of change, success, and overcoming in life is a lifestyle. Let me repeat that. Living the life of change or a life of change, I think I have it up there. No. Success and overcoming in life is a lifestyle. You're going to have to build a certain lifestyle if you want to get to a certain place in life, is what I want to talk about today. You're going to have to start building a certain lifestyle if you want to get to a certain place in life. And I guess because I'm getting older, I start thinking about where I'm going, where I'm going to wind up, who I'm going to become, what people are going to look at when I'm 80. What are they going to remember? What am I going to leave behind? What are people going to say? Some people might say, you know what? I don't care what anybody says. Well, that's your problem. That's the problem. Because if you don't care about what anybody says, then in my opinion, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with your character. The Bible teaches us, especially if we want to be a good Christian, which I want to be. I believe I'm a Christian. This is a Christian organization. This is what we do in here. I want to be like Christ. I want to be like God. And according to the Bible says to love God and love your neighbor. If you don't care about what people say, then you don't love people. And we need to love people. So, let's talk about this. If you look, I looked up years ago, I looked up what do you think most people want in life? Anybody want to guess? What do you think most people want in life? I looked it up. And I've looked this up. I looked this up 15 years ago. I looked this up 10 years ago. I looked this up 3 years ago. And I just looked it up last year because I know I spoke about this last year. And I just looked it up again on Google. And the same three things are always at the top of the list. Let me give you the list of the top 10 things that most people want in life. Happiness, love, good health. That's the first three. Then it says financial security, meaningful work, okay, freedom, strong relationships. I would say good relationships, personal growth. They want to grow as a person, peace of mind, and a sense of purpose. Those are the top 10. So here's the question of the evening, which is a good question to ask ourselves. If this is true, which I believe it is, the things I noticed you were shaking your head, and yeah, that's what we want. Because that's what we want. We want love. We want happiness. We want joy. We want peace. That's really what we want. But since we can't find it, we live in chaos, which is what we get used to living in. Especially if we're drug addicts. We're used to chaos. We get used to the chaos. So if love and happiness and joy and peace and peace of mind is really what we want in life, then the question it should beg the question, how do we get it? How do we get it? Listen, I started learning this a long time ago. And I said, I want that. And I found out that you don't get that just anywhere. And it is very hard to find, and that very few people find it. So let's look at this for a minute. Let's look at first at the advice that our society gives us about finding happiness and love and success, joy, peace of mind. Y'all want to? What kind of advice does this world give us? Does our society give us about finding that? Anybody want to take a guess of that? Nobody? You sound like you want to say something. Give them a mic. And we use the mic because the live stream, they can hear you. What is the advice our society gives us?
I would say maybe not society as a whole, but prayer.
Really? Who's been giving you that advice? That's some good advice. That's not the world that the society gives us, though. What does this world give us? What does the social media scream out at you? What is what is this world telling you to do in order for you to find happiness, joy, and
the The world will tell you materialistic type,
Okay. So things, right? You need things to be happy. Okay. Anything else?
and that you have to fit into specific crowds in order.
Fit in. Okay. You need to fit in. I mean, this is good because what you're telling me is kind of like the things that they don't necessarily say. It just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They just kind of insinuate it. But let me give you a couple of things that our world gives us to help you a little bit. Here's a big one. He says the world tells us to follow our heart. Ever heard that one? Just follow your heart. Listen to this. You don't have to be perfect or feel ready to start. You just have to follow your heart. Listen, I'm going to read the rest of this, and it sounds good. It really sounds good. And some of it is. And I mean, it is. But the premise is wrong, in my opinion. Follow your heart. So here's what it says. Follow your heart and be willing to put yourself out there. And continue putting yourself out there. Permit yourself to be perfect and imperfect, flawed, messy, and beautiful. Give yourself space to learn, fall, make mistakes, and do better. Give yourself credit where credit is due and celebrate your wins. Find and surround yourself with people who support you and understand your journey. Ideally, with people who are on the same journey as you are, so you can encourage each other to keep going. Friends who grow together stay together. So get out there and follow your heart. If you read that, that sounds awesome. And really, that's really what you should do. It's to follow your heart, the premise that's wrong. Because if you follow your heart, it's going to deceive you. Did you know that? I promise you. You know what God says about the heart? Let me tell you. Jeremiah 17:9. It says, the heart is deceitfully wicked above all things. Isn't that crazy? Think about that for a minute. He says, beyond cure. Now, that's interesting. You know, because especially when we're young, you know, we don't follow your heart. I know what they're trying to say. I understand the idea, right? Yes, you want to do what you want to do, what you like. I understand the idea. But you have to be careful with that. You can't just follow your heart. You got to follow what's right. As Christians, the Bible teaches us to deny ourselves. Because the second one I came up with was the one that says, here's what the advice our world gives us. Be true to yourself. Live your truth. Who's heard that one? You do you. And see, it sounds good. And it's and to a certain extent, it is true. But if you're not a Christian, then something's wrong there. And if you are a Christian, then you don't do you. You don't live your truth. You live his truth. That's how we live. Listen to what the article says about be true to yourself. As long as you are happy, that's all that matters. Who believes that? No. Drugs used to make me really happy. I was happy. I've met a lot of happy alcoholics. They're happy. It makes me happy. It really doesn't, right? But that's what it looks like. That's what we think it's doing. That's what we. And the reality is, it doesn't make us happy. As long as it makes you happy. Listen to what Jesus said. If you want true joy, now remember, we're talking about how to find happiness, joy, peace, fulfillment, peace of mind. According to the world, we need things. We need to fit in. We need big cars. We need big houses. We need money. And all those things are great. And we do need them. But not to be happy. They just make things a lot better. But you all understand what I'm saying, right? Jesus said in Matthew 16:24, he said to his disciples, if anyone wants to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whosoever loses his life for my sake will find it. What he's saying is that you're going to look for happiness and joy and peace and things and money and fame and prestige and fitting in. And what happens? It's not there. It's just not there. Mark 8:36 and 37 says, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? You know, I see a lot of people, and the reason I really am passionate about this particular subject is because I look at, I'm getting older. You know, 20 months, 20 years for me, 10 years for me, 10 years for me is very different than 10 years for you. 20 years for me is very different than you. In 20 years, I'll be 80 something. And so I think about it now. See, 20 years ago, I had a 20-year plan. I wasn't able to accomplish everything I wanted to accomplish, but I had the time. Now I don't have the time. But guess what? I still have a 20-year plan, but for when I'm 80, which is very different than yours, young man. And where I'm getting to is that I see a lot of older men, even at 50 and 60. I'm already 61. And they're not where they want to be. Their kids are out of the house. They're lonely. You know, they're just existing. And we get used to just existing. And most people just fall into depression, or a lot of people, alcoholism, just selfish living. I know people, I know a few men that just wasted their life in working and drinking, because that was all. There was no fulfillment. There was no happiness. That they never found it. So how then will we find true happiness, love, joy, peace, and contentment? How? According to the Bible, we need God in our lives. And that's where true joy and contentment comes from. You have to be willing to accept that. But let me read you, and one of the commandments, the number one commandment that the Lord gave us. Who knows the first commandment? Come on, I'm looking at you, Chavaria. You got to know it. Well, let me tell you what it is. To love God. That's the first commandment. They asked Jesus, what is the greatest commandment of all? What is the greatest commandment of all? And Jesus said, well, that's easy, to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And he says, and the second one is like it. He says, love your neighbor as yourself. What he was saying is that in order to love God, we need to learn to love people. And to love people, then you need to build relationships with people. And I want to focus on that one idea or that one thing, relationships. Coming to church, developing relationships in the church is bigger than you ever thought. Because your associations and your friends play a major part in who you are, what you become, and how your life ends. I have a lot of friends today. It's awesome. I think about it today. I think about it. In our church, I mean, everywhere I turn, I have friends. And it's exciting to go to a party for a 70-year-old and 50-year-old anniversary, and it's awesome. They're friends that care, that love, that pray. Listen to what this article says, and we're going to close with this. This article is called "What Really Matters in Life," and the under subtitle says relationships, relationships, relationships. And we think having a nice car and a nice job and enough money in the bank, oh, that's great. I'm doing that too. Okay. But I've met a lot of really angry people with money, just unhappy, discontent, divorced. Listen to this. We live in a world packed with possessions, packed with material possessions, and are engaged and encouraged to chase these things. So you are on it. As a result, our needs never seem to stop growing. So we keep running. But what really matters here? He says we run after bigger television sets, newer smartphones, a better car. We run after job promotions, luxury hotels, holidays. We tend to think that more money in our bank accounts will translate into a happier life. Now, let me just pause there for a minute. I like having money, okay? It makes me happy. But you all understand what I'm saying, right? It's not the money. While offline and online shopping can bring us short-term satisfaction, and it does, it rarely matters in the long run, which is what I'm talking about. These are just examples of things that don't matter in the end. So there was a research done. Listen to this research. It's powerful. Research on the impact of relationships in life. This is an adult development study in Harvard University on the lives of over 700 people was conducted for over a 75-year period. Think about this for a minute. They studied 700 people for 75 years. Remember, we're talking about happiness and joy and peace and contentment. When I learned this, man, I started cherishing my relationships with people. So listen to this closely. The participants were divided into two groups. One group of participants were people who had finished college, and the other participants formed of poor neighborhoods. College educated, poor neighborhoods. Their personal and professional lives were studied, as well as their health and relationships. While most people thought that money and fame made for a happier life, the research showed something very different. It was good relationships that had more positive impact on life than any other factor. It's not about having a big circle of friends or several relationships, he said. It's about having meaningful relationships, quality over quantity. In the words of Professor Robert Willinger, the director of the study, here's what he said. The clearest message that we get from this 75-year study is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Psychologist George Valiente said, one of the earlier researchers of the study, he came to the same conclusion. In his own words, here's what he said: the key to healthy aging, that's what I'm talking about, is relationships. 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 Relationships with our kids. I have grandkids. I have 6 grandkids. And listen, this is a little hard for me to accept. But because of my background, I never learned to love my own kids. I was never able to love them like they deserved. And that's the society we live in. So many people don't know how to love their kids. And I didn't know how. And then just recently, not too long ago, I started looking at my grandkids. I said, wow, this is incredible. I want to build a relationship with them. I never felt that before. But now I understand that if I don't build a relationship with my grandkids, with people, I'm going to be left alone somewhere in a, I don't know where. And why? Because people have a life. People got to live. But if you build a relationship, let's close with what really matters. What does Jesus promise us? Hope, love, peace, salvation, forgiveness, eternal life, restoration, family, relationships. That's what Christ offers us. His way. For Philippians 4:13, he says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Don't worry about nothing, but in everything, through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Talk to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. My relationship, I never thought when I walked into this church, and I'm going to encourage, this is why when I started the 90-day challenge, part of the reason of the 90-day challenge is to get people involved. And hopefully you start building better relationships. Because relationships is what's going to tie us together. Where we have someone to support us, someone to pray for us, someone to help us, someone to believe in us. And I can see that so clearly, and why that study was so powerful was because that's not even a Christian study. And that's what amazes me about the gospel of Jesus Christ and about being a Christian and about doing what I do. It's being confirmed over and over and over. People can deny it all they want. People can deny Christ, can deny God, can deny the church. But the people that do that, I see them miserable. Because there is no other hope. I never stopped to see if anybody had any questions. All right. As you're asking a question, I'm going to pass around the donation bucket, and I brought my donation today. Go ahead, sir.
So, like throughout my life, I've met a lot of different people, and I've had a lot of different experiences, and there have been times where I've known many people, and there's been times where, now I choose to have a smaller circle of people because, as you stated, relationships are extremely important. And so my closest relationship that I've found over time, it's a friend of mine. It's one friend. I've kind of really weeded out a lot of the people that try and, they want me around for perhaps the wrong reasons. And the reason I find him to be the person that I look to be my strongest relationship, it's because he's the one that always calls me in the morning. Hey, are we gonna go hit the gym? Hey, you want to read some verses, some Bible verses?
That's awesome.
Are we gonna go play basketball? And I find that he always wants to do something to allow me to have positive habits and to live a positive lifestyle, and that's
Yeah.
why I've chosen him. And so my question to you is, uh, what sort of relationship, or with whom do you share a strong relationship, and why is it that your relationship with them is so strong?
That's a good question. Because as you were telling me that, I'm thinking about my friends. I'm thinking about my friends because, because, and I don't know about you, but like personally, as human beings, we can be pretty selfish. We're pretty selfish people, which is really our biggest issue, our biggest flaw, our biggest problem, which is why we need God in our lives. Because left to ourselves, we're very selfish people. And I learned um, through helping others and being a friend to others. Somebody told me the other day, just not too long ago, this week, they told me, brother, I really appreciate what you do. You help me. You do whatever you can to help me, and you never ask for anything in return. And you know what? I felt really honored by that. And the reason is because I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be that person. I learned a long time ago that if I just help people, that's it. Just help them. Doesn't matter that they cheat you or lie to you or don't care or leave you or stab you. It doesn't matter. Because God is in control. And because the benefit of doing that is that it lifts my spirit up. And the reason it does that is because that's how I love God. I love God because I love people. I love people because I love God. And I think of my friends. I have, just because he's my friend. I respect them. It's awesome to see people grow and learn and experience and become better people. It's awesome. He's my friend. He's this friend over here. I can think of several. I can name them. I'm not going to name them because there's so many. I will. There's Chavarria. He's my friend. There's Frank. He's my friend. Daniel, my friend. I mean, it's not like, they're my friends. I've learned to appreciate friends. So, and I can name a bunch of people, You can't hang around with everybody all the time, right? And there's certain people that I hang around with more. But I just learn to appreciate people. I guess, did I answer your question? I hope so. Let's close with this scripture. I gave my life to Christ and I wanted to do things God's way. Because without making this really long, I came to the conclusion and to the belief that God's ways were better than any other way out there. That's why I serve God. Because I believe that God's way, the Bible, Jesus Christ, his ways are better than any other way out there. Better than Buddha, better than whoever, better than anybody. I've come to that conclusion. I've drawn my line there. I've made my mark. This is where I will, this is the hill I will die on. Jesus Christ and him crucified. And it's worked. And then the Bible tells me very simply like this. In Ecclesiastes 12:9 to 12. Listen to what Ecclesiastes says. When I read this, I said, wow, this is awesome. Because no matter what I do, he sees everything. He's in control. He's the master. He's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. I tell people all the time in here, you're going to bow down to someone in this world. You're going to bow down. Or to something. Drugs, alcohol, pornography, gangs, you name it. But you will bow to something or someone. I chose to bow to Christ, to the King of Kings. Here's what Ecclesiastes says. And moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yes, he gave good heed, and he sought out and set in order many proverbs. He said the preacher sought out to find out acceptable words, that which was written was upright, even the words of truth. The words of the wise are like golds, and as nails fastened by the master of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. And further, by this, my son, be admonished. Of making many books, there is no end. In other words, trying to figure it all out, there is no end. And much study is a weariness of the flesh. Stop trying to figure it out. Here's the conclusion of the whole matter. And that's what he says. Let us just hear the conclusion of the whole matter. He says, just fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this, that's it, is the whole duty of man. You know why? Because God shall bring every work into judgment, everything secret, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Just fear God, love God, and keep his commandments. For that's the whole duty of man. And that's the lifestyle I live for my better future. That's all I have, guys. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next week.